My name is Fred. Super happy to be here. Actually, that is my first time at Scale. Second talk yesterday. I don't know if some of you were in the talk yesterday. I gave a talk about like what the heck is Kubernetes. Basically, an introduction about like that word that we hear quite often, and sometimes we may not know what it is about. As the intro said, I'm a principal developer advocate at KubeFirst. What does that mean? My job is to give love to developers. I'm the friendly, social, approachable, technical face of the company. And during the talk, feel free, if you're on Twitter, I'm not going to say X. I'm still calling that Twitter. There's no way I'm going to call this X. Yeah, I know, it's just like a stupid branding. Anyway, that's my opinion. But I'm F Harper on Twitter, so feel free to tweet stuff that I share. Disagree with things that I'm going to say. Take pictures of the slides, of my beautiful face, whatever you want. Let's connect on Twitter. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And on that note, today I'm going to talk about Argo CD. Basically introducing you to Argo CD and talking a little bit more about like Argo CD waves, which is the title of the talk, Surfing the Argo CD wave, which is a little bit weird because I don't surf, but still, that's going to be the talk today. We only have an hour together. I could probably talk about Argo CD for a longer time than that. So today, when I was creating that talk, my goal was to introduce you to what is Argo CD as a tool that will help you in your cloud-native journey and trying to help you to get started with Argo CD. So you can go back at home, you can go back at work and try the application, try the technology, or at least try to get your hands dirty a little bit with the technology. So obviously, we won't see everything about Argo CD today, but hopefully that's good enough to either tell you like, hey, that's the technology that makes sense for me, or, yeah, no, what Fred told us for the last 45 minutes is bullshit. It's not interesting to me. So you decide what makes sense, but I'm super excited about that technology. For this talk, I expect some basic knowledge of some technology so we can move faster to the rest. So I expect that you have a little bit of knowledge about Kubernetes. So I'm not going to go in details. You don't need to be an expert. You need to know a little bit how it's working, how it is, what is Kubernetes. But don't be afraid if you're not like someone who's using Kubernetes every day. You're still going to get good information about Argo CD. I expect you to have a little bit of knowledge about Helm. Again, not that important, actually. I should probably even have removed that on that like warning slide because I'm not even gonna use Helm, I think. I don't remember actually my talk, so, but I assume I don't use it that much. A little bit of knowledge about Git or things like GitHub and YAML, because again, I'm not gonna explain YAML, but I'm gonna show some YAML file where I'm gonna explain a little bit the content of those files. Again, those are really, you just need to have like high level knowledge about those technologies to really be able to follow that talk. You do not need to be an expert. Specifically about things like YAML, I was saying in my talk yesterday when I started to go in the cloud-native way, God, I hated YAML. I was a JSON person. YAML was like a pain in my ass. That was terrible. I hated it so much. And now, it took me a while, but now I'm a huge fan. I don't have to put brackets everywhere. I don't have to put double quotes everywhere. It seems like it's a little bit cleaner when you have to define something. With that said, let me start with a quick introduction about GitOps, because that's going to be important to understand a little bit, just really, again, high level, the GitOps principle, to understand what I'm going to show you when it comes to Argo CD, because even before explaining Argo CD, let me just do a quick introduction. So what we used to do as developer, we have our code. We put our code on Git somewhere, or if you've been doing that for a long time prior to Git, you were doing that on like SVN, or like, was it CVS or CSV? I don't remember. That's a long time ago. I still have nightmare. Say that again? Which one? Oh God, no. Please, no. No. Or what was the Microsoft technology to, say that again? Yeah, that thing gave me nightmares. Like as much as like when again, with every technology, I think we have like a little bit like, oh no, things are changing. But like once you get used to it, like I get used to Git and I was like, oh my God, that is so much better on so many levels. Like it's a little bit more complicated to get the grasp out of it, but once you have it. Anyway, I'm going in all direction. So we put our code on Git, whatever, GitHub, GitLab, something internally. We have a CI CD pipeline that basically deploy our stuff, and we put this on the cloud, whatever the cloud means. That could be on-prem, that could be a server in your wardrobe, I don't know why I struggle with that word in English, at your house. You just put your code somewhere. Actually, your like continuous delivery platform will put the code out there. And this is basically what we were doing mostly at the beginning when we were talking about DevOps. Slowly, and part of GitOps, we are adding infrastructure as code. You know, things like Terraform, where you define your infrastructure with code, which is a thing of beauty. I love that so much. So you may have done that in your DevOps journey as a developer, but now it's really part of GitOps. So now it's an important part. You have to do infrastructure as code. And you're also going to put your configuration. So you put everything in Git. Git become your source of truth. But there's also other difference in the way that you're going to deploy your application. So you know that CI/CD, we always say CI/CD like they're like brothers or sisters and like they need to stick together. Now, we separate them. Because at the beginning, there are two different things, but we always talk about CI/CD. But now, you still have your continuous integration. You still have like that CI pipeline that do some testing, that release some like new versions, new chart, new images, do whatever you have to do in your CI pipeline. But now we decouple the CI and the CD pipeline. And another thing that is different is that prior to that, Git was pushing things to the CD platform mostly, and the CD platform was doing things, deploying and stuff like that. But now, when it comes to GitOps, the CD platform will, and please, if there is a better way to put that in a diagram, like the pulling image, I tried to do it, but like the CD will go and Git, pull the information, and bring it back to the CD platform. Why? To deploy that to Kubernetes cluster. So GitOps is really a way of doing things that is really specific to cloud native. Some pieces of it are part of like what we used to do every day, but they're put together. And why the CD is pulling the information from the Git now, it's because on your cluster, you have an Argo CD agent that basically clone your Git repo, and I will talk a little more about that, why it is happening. So again, Git become your source of truth, where you put everything in your Git repository. And this is GitOps in a nutshell. You don't have to understand everything about what I just said if you're new about GitOps. Just understand that there's a little bit of difference between how we were doing things when it comes to DevOps and how we do things when it comes to GitOps. But now, there are some benefits about using GitOps. I'm not just saying that because like that's the way I prefer to do things. It uses familiar tools and processes. You use Git or whatever Git server you're going to use, GitHub, GitLab, whatever, you just use Git. So if you're used to Git in your day-to-day processes, you are basically good to go with GitOps. It also uses maybe infrastructure as code. You may not be new to that. It's not new to GitOps. It's a technology that we're using for a couple of years. So like people doing DevOps, they're still going to use things like Terraform to create their infrastructure. So you're familiar with the tool and the processes. It helps you to do faster deployment and iteration. And it's easily reproducible because Git is your source of truth. So no more things that are running only on the server anymore. Your source of truth is Git. It's not the server anymore. So it ends up like you won't have like, oh, it's working on my machine, or it's working on my server, and it's not working on the other server, or we change things directly on the server. Like everything is on Git, which brings no cluster drift. What is it? You know, we've all done it. If you said no, you're probably lying. There's something wrong on the server. What are we going to do? We're going to go quickly on the server to try to fix things. We're going to fix things on the server, and we're going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to refactor that later, or I'm going to put that like in our source code later, and later usually never happen. What's happening with GitOps? Because Git becomes your source of truth, And I will tell you a little more about like the sync status of Argo CD, but like what's going to happen is that Argo CD is going to look in your Git, it's going to look in the cluster, and it's going to say like, hey, like there is something different on the server, or the other way around, depending if you're a positive or negative person. Like Argo CD will look and like, hey, there is something different between the Git repo and the server. And we'll try to reconcile that so the server reflect what is in your source of truth in Git. It brings greater collaboration because everything needs to go to Git. And with that, hopefully you have a proper review process, meaning that like if I want to change something on my Kubernetes cluster, I'm going to have to go in Git. I'm going to have to do a pull request. I'm not going to commit directly on main. I'm going to do a pull request. And hopefully someone on the team is going to review my pull request, approve it, decline it, ask me for changes. It may be a pain if you don't have proper process, but I feel like you should have those processes in place, having someone review your pull request, and because now, again, I'm going to be tiring with that. Everything is in Git. You can use that process of like pull request review to be sure that it brings, from my point of view, greater collaboration and better quality of whatever you're going to put on your server. It brings, I struggle with that word in English. I really need to find a synonym, but like auditability. Was that good? Yeah? Okay. English is not my first language, French is. So auditability, because, again, everything is in Git. So you have the Git logs. You did a pull request. You've seen who approved it. It's not about blaming people. It's just easier to understand what are the changes that happen in the server, contrary to like, hey, Bob went on the server on the Friday night to fix things that we don't know about. Now everything is visible to everyone also, which bring also more security and the simplification of access control. Because now I don't need to give access to every developer on my team. Not that I don't trust developer, I'm a developer myself, but I don't need to give access to everybody on my team to my server. I don't even need to give access to everybody to Argo CD, or I can give them access like just to view only. What I give access to people is to my Git repo. On top of that, my CD pipeline doesn't need to have access to my server. Sometimes we're going to need to like have a connection, not sometimes, all the time. You're going to need a connection between my CD pipeline to my server so my CD can push things to the server. Now, because there is that agent in the Kubernetes cluster, you need that agent to have access to your Git repo. But from my point of view, I think it's a little more secure. I'm not a security expert, but I feel like it's a little more secure to do it that way. It's cost saving for all those reasons, and it's easily revertible. You can do rollback changes because it's just a question of, hey, you know what? We're gonna like revert the code that we did in the previous pull request, or we're gonna rebase the history and remove a commit or do stuff like that. And once it's in Git, the server will pick up the change and you're gonna be good to go. And lastly, because of all those things, you bring a simple stateless disaster recovery model. My cluster goes boom for whatever reasons. Now what I can do, I create a new Kubernetes cluster and I reinstall or redeploy everything that was in my Git repo. I'm not screwed. I'm not concerned about like having backups. I'm not concerned about all those things. I'm not concerned about the changes that, again, is there any Bob in the room? Okay, I didn't want to be mean to Bob in the room, but like, it's not about like Bob making the change on Friday evening on the server that, again, nobody knows about because he fixed something and now we need to redeploy for whatever reasons. We don't have that change anywhere. It was specifically on the server, but like I lost the access on that server. So a lot of reasons to think about GitOps when you do your cloud native journey. So it's not the only way, but it's the way that when I talk to people about starting a cloud native journey, I said like you probably need to think about GitOps. Why I was talking about that? Because Argo CD was created. You don't have to use it as a GitOps CD pipeline, but it was created with GitOps in mind, and this is part of where the power of Argo CD comes from. Sorry about that. It's pretty cold there, huh? Yeah. I mean, I'm Canadian, and like, I feel like it's cold in the conference center.
You should try
Oh yeah? Is it like colder or like too hot? Steamy? Okay, okay. Yeah, so anyway, I was just like, I thought it was like just me. Maybe I caught something or like, no. But like, again, I'm Canadian, so I know code, and that should not be code. So anyway, now let's move to the main topic, Argo CD. That is, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. That is the beautiful mascot of Argo CD, Hardnote. I just love it. So why I love Argo CD, it's not the only CD pipeline, CD tool, CD system, whatever you call that, CD application that you can use in your cloud native journey. There is a lot of like more traditional CD platform that you could use. There's also a CNCF project called Flux. Argo CD, it's open source. Also, it's not part of the CNCF project, but like it's open source. It's free, and it's part of Argo project, which have also other tools like Argo Workflow, Argo Events. But Argo CD, as I said, it's free, it's open source. I'm a terminal person. I don't know for you, I love the terminal. I love to do things in my terminal. But I'm not against a beautiful UI once in a while or to make things easier. And because there's a lot of information about things that I deploy on my cluster, having a nice UI is pretty cool. And the Argo CD UI is nearly flawless. And again, I'm not a designer, I'm not a UI expert, but I just love it. Which, when I do things with Argo CD, they have a CLI. I do things most of the time in the UI because I love it so much. I'm going to show you like the graphical interface that show you like the sync status and basically what's happening within your cluster. It's also easier to manage permission. I was telling you before, hey, for whatever reasons, it's not because you don't trust your developers, but you're a big organization, you need to manage permission in different ways than, let's say, a small startup. I can give like just a view access to people to Argo CD, and my developer can see like, hey, I release a new version, and it is in the GitOps repository. That is my source of truth. I want to see if it's deploying. I want to see like the sync status on Argo CD. You can give those different access. As I said before, Argo CD was created with cloud native in mind. So it's not like a previous platform that was there before Kubernetes was a thing. It was created for Kubernetes. It was created for, how can I say, standard Kubernetes usage, but really with GitOps in mind. So again, you can use it for without using the GitOps principle when you go cloud native. But if you do, and this is part of like why I'm giving that talk, this is where you get all the benefits of the Argo CD platform. One of the main feature, one of the biggest benefit is the real-time status. So what's going to happen? You deploy something, you had an application, you update an application in your Git repository. Argo CD, as I said, has an agent in your cluster. It will check to see like, hey, like is there something by default it's every 3 minutes. It's going to check the Git repo. Actually, it's going to clone the Git repo to the latest version. Going to check like, hey, is there something that changed based on the previous Git version that I have and now? And if something changed, it's going to start to do whatever you tell, like in your probably YAML file, what to do on your cluster. And you're going to have access to the sync status. You're going to have access to the current state, so the current state of the cluster right now. So what's the current state of my cluster? But also, what's the desired state? So if there is a cluster drift, if there's something different between Argo CD and my Git repo, I'm going to have access to that. But on top of that, I'm also going to have access to the app help. And I'm going to explain, actually, I'm going to show you this right now, right after talking about repositories. So one way to make Argo CD behave like a GitOps platform for your cloud native is to add a repository. So there is an option in Argo CD where you can say like, hey, I'm going to point to you to my source of truth that should be reflected in my cluster. And you do that by pointing in Argo CD to Git repo. So at KubeFirst, what do? We call this like simply GitOps repo, and that becomes our source of truth for our, in our case, production server, development server, or whatever the server that we want to deploy, the cluster that we want to deploy. If I want to be transparent, because I want to be transparent, it's also possible for you to point repository to a Helm repo. But I would suggest to point this to a Git repo because of GitOps. It makes really your life more easier. So let me show you. Here, actually, I'm going to use K3D. I'm going to create a new cluster. Actually, K3D, I said. There is also a technology called Key3s, but Key3 is basically, I don't know, like Minikube or Kind, helps you create like a Kubernetes cluster locally on your machine. It uses Docker in that case. So if I go in Docker here, actually should probably have created that before the talk, but it's going to take 2 seconds. I'm going to have containers running with basically, quote unquote, Kubernetes here. And actually, that's not what I'm going to do in that demo. Let me switch to another cluster that I have. So it's a cluster that I created in Civo. I don't know if you know K9s. That's my best friend. I mostly don't use kubectl anymore for most of the things. Actually, I started to forget how to do things with kubectl or kubectl, if you say it wrong. So kubectl, K9 is just like the way of living for me. And something's happening on my cluster, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be good enough. So right now, I'm showing all the pods that I have in that cluster. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to be just a little bit tricky. I'm going to install Argo. Nope. Wrong icon. I'm going to go in VS Code here, and I'm going to deploy customize Argo CD for one reason. And actually, you know what? I'm going to explain that to you a little bit later, why it makes sense. But right now, if I close that thing, you're going to see I'm basically creating a namespace, Argo CD namespace. I'm going to use the manifest to install Argo CD, so the one provided by Argo CD here. If I go here, this is what I'm doing. So Argo CD, I'm making this secure. I'm creating the namespace Argo CD, and that's kind of it. So, oh no, actually there is this one. This one, I'm going to explain it later. It's customization Argo CD, but you could just basically do helm install and use Argo CD. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do, let me go to manifest, and I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to use the one I have in the workshop. So I'm going to apply the manifest to install Argo CD in my cluster. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to install Argo CD in my cluster. I'm going to show you an empty Argo CD cluster, but after that, bear with me, I'm going to show you a full-fledged production-ready one with a lot of things in it. So while it's doing that, actually, let me show you the other one. So I created a cluster. It's not to talk about KubeFirst, but I've created a cluster with KubeFirst. It's a free open source platform. It's what we do. We help you to create actually production-ready, full-fledged platform because, you know, creating a cluster is the easy part. But after that, you're not quite ready to deploy your application. You know, you probably want something to manage your secrets. You won't have like a CD pipeline. You need something to manage like the certificate that you're going to need to access your application outside. You need something to, maybe if you really want to do GitOps, have Atlantis, which is a tool that's going to help you to manage Terraform, apply within your Git processes. So what we do is that with that tool, you select the public cloud, you create a cluster that gives you that beautiful interface. But my point is, let me go to Argo CD here. And now this is like a really nice Argo CD that I need to connect to. So what do we do also when we create a cluster? We install Vault. We use it like as a Hawaii DC platform for SSO connection with other services. So it's why Argo CD redirected me to Vault. It's not going to happen in the default installation on Argo CD. So here I'm just logging with my username and password. Now I'm going to be in Argo CD. What do we do at KubeFirst? We use the app of apps pattern, meaning that like there is one application that I call registry here, and let me make that a little bit bigger. And here, this is what I'm going to see. I'm going to see all my application, everything that is deployed in my app is going to be here. I don't know if it's big enough, but oh, the other one. You're going to see here, there's that little heart. It's basically saying that, like, hey, my ingress and Nginx component, my application here is LT. I have the check mark here. It's green. It means that it's synced. So I have here, let me make it even bigger. So here I have, like, the latest commit that I have in my GitOps repo. I have what was synced. And right now, everything is LT. Everything is synced. The repository that I was talking about before is in settings. I have repository. And what I've done, I connected my Argo CD to my GitOps repository. So now everything that I'm going to do in my GitOps repo is going to be reflected here. And let me show you my GitOps repo. If I go here. So the thing with GitOps, it's not really, how do you call that, standard per se. There is a group, a working group working on defining the principle and like sharing some kind of like best practices, but like, there is no one way to like define your GitOps repo. So what we do here, we have the Terraform folders where we put different Terraform files. So this is how we structure GitOps repo. I shared that because that could be interesting to understand. But like if I go here, I have a couple of Terraform files. So I have a Cvo folder because I created my cluster in Cvo. If you don't know Cvo, it's a smaller cloud provider, a little bit like DigitalOcean. What is nice is that you know what you pay for. You don't have like surprise billing at the end of the month. But I'm going to have my Terraform file here. And I also use Terraform because there is like GitHub provider to create the repos that are connected to whatever I want to deploy in my cluster. So I have the repos here, and I'm going to have like the repositories that I created, which is only 2 with my Kubefirst deployment. But you get the gist. Everything is in my Terraform folder. What becomes, oh, even users. Actually, we even manage users. So here, let's say I have, not this one. I even create users in Vault, so my users can have access to different part of my ecosystem that I deploy, but also I use that to have like a developer and admin groups, so the GitHub repositories that I'm going to create part of my projects, I'm going to be able to give them different access. So if I would like to have a user like this one right now, I would just uncomment that, or like basically create a new model. But again, everything is part of my GitOps repo. But now let's go to the more interesting stuff. Here I have the registry, and we define that with different environments, but also different clusters, because when I created my clusters, I created like what I call my management cluster, which is what you've seen, but I also created like a production, staging and development clusters. That were actually virtual clusters. So that's a nice technology. If you don't know, there is vCluster, a technology from LoftSH that give you the opportunity to create virtual cluster, and they're nearly identical to like physical clusters. So that's perfect for testing stuff, to giving some like more ephemeral clusters to your team. The only thing is that your vCluster lives inside a physical cluster, so the resources depends on like the resources from your physical cluster. But I'm going in another direction. Here I have basically what I've shown you, which is my app of apps pattern. I have my registry YAML. I don't know if that's big enough. I have my registry YAML that define that basically say like, hey, you know what? Like everything you need to deploy from my app of apps is in that folder, which is the one that I'm in. So if I go here, I have all my application that have been, all the definition of my application that have been deployed with Argo CD. And I'm going to show you how to basically deploy an application. But just before that, let me see. I should have on my other cluster, I should now have Argo CD installed. And I have Argo CD installed. Let me just port forward here, which is probably not what I want to do in production, but for a demo, that's good enough. And now I have a beautiful, not really sexy Argo CD. So you could do like a Helm install, having Argo CD, and you're good to go. And what would be the next step for me is, if I want to do it the GitOps ways, go in repository, connect to repo here, or connect a Helm repository. But I suggest, again, a Git repo. And I would have Argo CD become my CD pipeline for my cluster. But there's other way to install application. I'm going to show you that a little bit more further in the talk. Is this good so far? That's kind of like a lot of information, but I think that's the way to go to at least get out of here after an hour and kind of like understand what is the tool. So there's a couple of ways to deploy application. If you want to do GitOps, the way to go is to define your YAML file, put your YAML file in your GitOps repo, and have Argo CD sing that for you. You can also use the interface. So within Argo CD interface, I can add new application, and I can define my application that would point to a Helm chart, that would point to a Git repository, that would point to a specific file that I want to deploy in my application. If I do that, though, Argo CD won't commit stuff to your GitOps repo. So that's not my preferred way to do that. But again, that's a talk about Argo CD, not just GitOps. So I want to show you all the opportunities, all the ways to do these. And the third way is you can use the CLI. Argo CD has a CLI. So in your terminal, you can install with your CLI in the Argo CD CLI in your Kubernetes cluster. Sorry. Actually, you're totally right. I never put the API here because most people don't want to go through the API route when you have the UI and the CLI, but you're totally right. Actually, this is what the CLI is doing. It's basically like doing like the in-between, like Argo CD and you is connecting to the API to access. But yeah, I should probably even add that to the talk because you may want to do that if you want to do some automation that maybe you cannot do with the CLI. But the CLI is pretty good though. You can basically do mostly everything you want with the CLI. So with that said, let's deploy an application, but the GitOps way. So here, that is so zoom. I'm going to go back here. No, I'm not in the right place. Let me go back to my GitOps repo here. And what I'm going to do, I'm in my registry folder. So again, this is the architecture that we decided to use for our GitOps repo. You don't have to do the exact same way. But what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go, oh my God, I cannot understand that size. Let me, just for a second, that's way too much. So I'm going to create a new file called whatever.yaml, and I'm going to cheat here. So what's going to happen is that I'm creating an application. I'm adding a YAML file in my GitOps repository. The kind is an application, but as you may see here, it's a little bit different than when you're going to do a YAML file that is specific to Kubernetes, so the API version is a little bit different, but the rest is kind of a little bit the same information. So I'm going to give a name. I'm going to put it in the namespace. I decided Argo CD. Here, there's something interesting, the sync wave. So I'm going to talk a little more about that later, and this is one of the things that I really love about Argo CD. So bear with me. Let's keep it to 0. It's the default anyway, the sync wave version. And I'm going to define here that I want to install a chart. So I'm pointing to a chart repo or repository. I'm defining the version that I want to install, the name of my chart, and sorry. And the rest is a little bit boilerplate, except that I also basically had 2 files in one. For the sake of the demo, I installed Ingress controller. So we're going to be able to access that application that I'm installing on Flappy on that URL. So just before I do anything, I pre-install the application before the demo because hopefully I wanted DNS to be my friend because, you know, it's never DNS, it's always DNS. So just to show you, right now it's not like working. I refresh, it was working. Hopefully DNS will still be in the air. And I'm going to commit. I'm going to do something that you should not be at home. You should not do this at home, kids. I'm going to head directly in main without having anyone reviewing my stuff because, you know, it's Sunday, nobody's at work. So I'm going to have that file. I'm going to commit this directly. Again, shouldn't do that. And I'm going to go back to Argo CD here. Please, 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 fast enough. So I'm not missing what's going to happen. Whoa, I zoom way too much. So, okay. Let me zoom again anyway. God, the zooming is bad. Okay. So, as you see here, the last thing is still my previous commit. I removed the application before doing the talk. So now sync is okay. The default sync time is every 3 minutes. But what I could do, I could try to refresh here. And Argo CD is going to say like, okay, I need to refresh my stuff. Go check in GitOps repo. And it's going to say like, hey, now I'm checking stuff. And it's going to see like, hey, you know what? There is that new application that is here. If I click here, and I think I was not fast enough, I could have seen Maybe next time I'm going to put like a sleep job just so we can see. But anyway, I'm going to show you the sync wave after. There is the desired manifest, which is what is on my Git repo. There is the live manifest, which is what is now on my cluster. And we should have seen a difference from like basically everything because I just added the file. But like, let's say I do another commit, I upgrade the version of my chart. I'm going to come here. When it's going to sync, the difference is going to be like the chart version. And now it's syncing. So it's synced. But now things are being deployed. So if I go back here, and need to zoom down again because I'm going to survive that. If I go here, no, not this one. My ENJ Flappy here, my application. I go here, I have that beautiful view of like every Kubernetes object that was deployed to create my application. You know, I have a deployment, I have like services, I have replica set, I have my pod here, and everything seems to be healthy. So the heart, again, it's because things are healthy, meaning that like the endpoint that I defined or the default endpoint like Argo CD is like, you know, the application is great. And the check mark is because the sync is okay, meaning that like what Argo CD, the last thing that Argo CD saw in Git, the last thing that I refresh or that Argo CD sync automatically is the exact same thing. So now, if the DNS are with me and I refresh that, I have my new application, which is the basically, what was the name of that game? Like Flappy Birds, which is amazing and super frustrating game at the same time. But how I deployed that, I didn't go on the command line, do you know, K or kubectl or kubectl, whatever you call it, applying my YAML file. I even didn't go in Argo CD because I told you I could go in here and say like new application, and I could basically define myself what I want to install here. My application, I can point to a Git repo, I can point to a Helm repo, and I define the path, the branches. I put the YAML file in my GitOps repo, and Argo CD did the rest of the job, which is what I really love about like the GitOps principle and that tool. A little trick about that, if sometime you're not too sure, I don't know how much experience you have with Kubernetes, but like if you're not too sure like how to define your YAML file for specifically Argo CD to like deploy it correctly, sometimes you go here in the interface, and once you input everything, instead of like creating, clicking create here, and really not doing it like doing a ClickOps way, which you should not from my point of view. You can just go here, edit as YAML, copy and paste your stuff, create a YAML file in your Git repo, and you are doing this the GitOps way. So that's one way of deploying an application. That is the GitOps way. That is the way that I really like to do. And oh, actually, let me show you. Do I have time? Yeah. Let me do that in 1 minute, actually. If I go back here, and I go flappy array, and I say delete the file, comment on main, please don't quote me on that. If I go back here, oh, not this one. If I go back here, too many Argo CDs. Oh, it was here. And I go back to my registry. And again, I refresh. 10 minutes, whoa, I talk too much. Anyway, this is the part that's gonna refresh, it's gonna remove my application, and it's not gonna work anymore. The thing that I really want to share with you, and I only have 10 minutes because I talk way too much most of the time, is the phases and sync wave, which is the exciting thing for me. There is 3 phases of sync. There is the pre-sync, there is the sync, and there is the post-sync. Exciting. Meaning that, like, the sync is what we've done. You know, I had the application, I click something, it's saying it did the stuff. I can do things before, I can do things after. Decide whatever makes sense for you. What's really interesting is the waves of the sync. So, Argo CD, because you've seen, I deployed many applications. If I create a new cluster with all those applications, there is probably an order that I want to do stuff. Let's say I want to deploy WordPress, and I didn't use like the official Bitnami chart that had like WordPress and MySQL, but I want to deploy MySQL myself, and after that, WordPress. So what I want to do is I want to deploy MySQL. And once my SQL is responsive, working, and I can connect to it, I want to deploy WordPress. So I'm going to use the sync wave, which is a number that you've seen before, that the default is 0. You can go minus whatever to plus whatever. I suggest keeping it over 0. So Argo CD is going to decide, based on the number, ascending number, what is the thing that I need to deploy first, and what is the thing that I need to deploy after. If you have the same sync wave, Argo CD is going to be like, hey, I'm going to go by kind. And there's a full list in the documentation. I'm going to start with, like, is there like a namespace object? Is there a service object, a deployment object, and so on. And if you have the same sync wave, the same kind of object, it's going to go by name, ascending by name. So that is the magic of the sync wave. What I've deployed before is the part that I didn't tell you. That talk goes a little bit to shit with the change that happened in Argo CD 6 months ago, because by default, they changed how they manage the sync wave. So before, they were going exactly what I told you, but they were waiting for the application to be healthy before moving to the next sync wave. But for performance reasons, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, they changed it, and now they're just waiting that the check mark, the sync status is okay, and they move forward, which it's probably what you don't want to do most of the time if you use a heap of apps and wants to use the sync wave. So what I've done here, when I deploy my Argo CD on my other empty cluster, I basically redefine the old way, meaning that, like, hey, before moving to the next sync wave, wait for the application to be healthy. So it's basically what I'm doing here. So let me show you a sync wave, how it's working. So I have my boring Argo CD here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to deploy, actually, a heap of apps. And let me show you quickly the heap of apps that I'm going to deploy here with my super zoom Visual Studio that I cannot see anything now. Argo CD, sync wave. So I have a registry here. Again, that points to the exact same Git repo that have two YAML file, zero wave. That is also a heap of apps. That's going to point to my zero wave folder that have 3 kind objects, which are jobs. That is like a job, an object 0, an object 10, an object 20, and basically they have the same sync wave as the object that they are in. So I have my registry that have one heap of app that is to the sync wave 0, 0. I have another heap of app that is at the sync wave 10, and another app of app that, no, actually, that's all. Within those app of apps, I have a job that is at the sync wave 0, a job that is at the sync wave 10, and a job that is at the sync wave 20. So if I deploy that, so I did here, it's not a GitOps way, it's for the demo. People in the back may not see because the screen is a little bit weird here. But I'm going to apply this, so just kubectl apply half my file pointing to my repo. If I go in Argo CD here, that said that it was created. Probably need to refresh. Actually, I probably need to do the port forward. So hopefully, not going to miss my demo here. I killed key 9s2 fast. Going here, I have my registry. What's going to happen? Oh no, I'm not on the right one. Sorry. Where did I deploy that? Can I? You can't see it here, but like that's kind of like messing up with my demo 8080. I'm looking at those 8080. No, that was the nicest demo ever. Yeah, I know, that's sad. Why is it not happening here? Argo CD server. I'm in Argo CD sync wave. Oh, no? I'm good, sorry? No, that should be good. Okay, let me try on this one quickly. It's gonna work. Let me change my context. I don't know why it's not. Oh, let me do the K3D, this one. Let me try it quickly. Oh, I didn't deploy. Let me go on this one. Should work. Let me try to deploy this one. So Argo, sync wave, registry YAML. Cross our finger. It's going to work. And oh no, that's going to screw up everything on my cluster. No, the demo is so sexy. Okay, so let me, It's kind of working, but that's not going to work because I override the registry and that's going to be an opinion in the ass. Oh no, okay, it's working. So what's happening here ish, it's not exactly the demo that I want to show you, but what's happening here is that as you see, this one should be like not completely synced because I override the process. Now I just had a job that wait for 10 seconds. So this one is already done, this one is already done, but as you may have seen, the 0 job was started. The 10 sleep, which is like the sync wave 10, did not start until the 0 was done. And the 20 didn't start until the 10 was done. But if I go back here and I go to the next one here, the 10 sync wave, we're going to see nothing. So that was a beautiful demo. My idea was to showcase that like I had a hub of apps at sync wave 0 that started to sync. Within that one, I had the job that was the sync wave 0, 1 at 10, 1 at 20, and they were going sequentially one by one. And the other app of app that was a sync wave 10 didn't start until the app of app at sync wave 0 was finished, because first I override that. And because it went about like, hey, they have different sync wave, so I'm going to finish the app of app that is the sync wave 0, everything that needs to be deployed before moving to the other app of apps. So that was basically like the goal of that talk, was to show the sync wave. So hopefully it's not as exciting, not sure what happened. But in the end, what you get with Argo CD and GitOps is basically that. You get to the right, you get the same kind of process that you get usually. You know what? You do your pull request. Actually Argo CD is going to check what's happening, what is the desired state, going to calculate the desired state, try to identify divergences, attempt to sync your information, provide the sync result to the interface, actually the API, which the API is like also using the interface, using the CLI. Going to demo that and do that process all over again and again and again until there is no cluster drift. So some resources if you want to get started with Argo CD. argoproj.github.io/cd. It's the place to be. It's the place to go. I usually have questions about like, oh, what's the difference between Flux CD and Argo CD? It is not the goal of that talk. This is a great article that is really sweet, short and sweet, give you like the really high level of difference. To be honest, I think at that point it's just a question of preference. What are you used to? What do you like? The thing with Flux is it's a great technology. The company that was working on it, they unfortunately, how do you say that? They went bankrupt. Yeah, I don't know. But there is still like a great open source contributor out there, and some of the employees continue to work at their new job on the project, so it's not dead per se, and it's a CNCF project, so hopefully it's not dead. But there are some differences. As I said, I told you why I prefer Argo CD with the beautiful interface, the management of permission. What is really exciting to me is how it was built. If you want to try Argo CD without having to do all the manual stuff that I did, try Kube first. It's free. As I said, it's open source. That's going to create you the cluster that I've shown you with all the apps installed, configured, working together, so you have like a production-ready cluster. And if you want to try Argo CD, you have any question, actually I should put there is also a Slack for Argo CD project. But if you're like, hey, it's intimidating with all those like Argo CD community, it's a big Slack. Come to your Slack community. It's kubefirst.io/Slack. We have Argo channel for, we just call it Argo because we can help you with any project. Even if you don't use our product, we're just friendly people with an expertise, with an experience, with the love for Argo CD and the Argo project. So if you need help, we're going to be more than happy to help you. And with that said, I think I'm running out of time. If you have any question, please feel free. I'm going to stick outside of the room after to take more questions. You can send me an email, ping me on Twitter, ping me on LinkedIn. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Last thing, if you want to talk about Argo CD, you want to talk about cloud native, you want to talk about Kubernetes, you want to talk about cats, coffee, Buddhism, whatever. You just want to get to know each other. I'm offering free coffee chat. You go on fred.dev/coffee. It's a 30 minutes video call. It's just like, because I'm a social and I hope a friendly person. So this is what I'm offering. And on that note, hopefully on the Sunday morning, that helps you to understand a little bit Argo CD and hopefully get as excited, even if you didn't have like the really sexy demo of SyncWave, get you as excited about Argo CD to try it within your cloud native journey and hopefully even maybe go a little bit the GitOps way. So I think that's it. Thanks for your time. You have time for, yeah, okay. If there is any question, comment, insult, I think we have 5 minutes or something.
Thank you very much. I was wondering how you set up your shortcut on GitHub. Like you put a...
Sorry, so I'm a little bit hard of hearing, and because I put that, I removed my hearing aid. So how long have?
No, there's the shortcut on GitHub. Like you put a colon cube something, and then that populated over the YAML file. I was wondering how you did that.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not related to Argo CD. I use a tool called Espenso. It's an open source tool. It's on GitHub, github.com/Espenso, and you can define shortcuts. Like my shortcut was like colon flappy-cvo. It replaced my stuff. I use this for everything and anything. You can specify, I want that shortcut to run only in my terminal. You can also have like regular expression to do stuff. So to be honest, like there is some like Git comments that I don't even remember how to write them. Like more complicated one because I just have my shortcut. Like if I go here and I do like, hey, I want to git commit or change, like I do GM or like I remember this one or git C, and like I do this for a lot of things, just make my life so much easier. And I've been giving talks for a long time, and I hate people that do a lot of like live coding because you make a lot, like you're good, bravo, but like you're taking times to people most of the time, and like now I just want to show you the content. I don't want to like make typos, and like even the demo that is fully prepared with the YAML file didn't work. Yeah. So like the demo got happened. Anyway, long story, it's Espenso.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another question. Is it possible to, instead of using numbers for SyncWave, is it possible to say, wait for this application or this resource that has this label? Is that something possible?
Waiting about, waiting that application X
yes,
is finished to be, no, it's not. As far as I know, it's not a feature. So it's why you really need to think about your SyncWave. So one of the things that I would suggest what we do here is like, we know, like you've seen my cluster, there's like 15 applications that I installed by default when I use Kube first. And what we do is for each application, we do like we do like 10, 20, 30, 40, which give me a gap between. So if I want to like, oh yeah, there is also that application that I would like to put in, I'm going to put like in between 15, like in between 10 and 20, I'm going to put it 15. And the next time I refactor, I'm going to adjust my number if it's an application that needs to stay in my cluster. Maybe though, there is something you can do like with the pre-sync and post-sync, but I don't think it's made for that, so I would not suggest doing that. So it's why the sync is super interesting, but it can be a little bit of pain if you want to do those kind of things. Okay. It's also why I overwrite the now default way of working with Argo CD because of, where's my manifest? Here, that part, because what I'm saying here, it's even worse for your scenario because now by default Argo CD won't take care about the health of the application. So it's not because Argo CD was like, hey, okay, yeah, I started to deploy MySQL, that MySQL is accessible and I needed to be able to like go to the admin of WordPress, let's say. So those SyncWave are really what you want to use to make happen. But at the beginning it's confusing. At some point you really get used to it and you can like use the SyncWave to do mostly whatever you want.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Are there any other questions?
Is there a mechanism to rely on like a webhook from Git instead of having Argo poll every few minutes, or is it okay?
Yeah. So there is webhooks that you can use within Argo CD. I didn't talk about them because I think they're like a little not that advanced, but like since we only had an hour, so there is webhooks that you can use. One of the things we do also is that they have another project called Argo Workflow that we kind of like integrate within Git. So sometimes we have like GitHub actions that gonna fire GitHub workflows to do things that we want to do, but like that's a separate project that is not totally made to how we use it, but we use it a little bit like a CI sometime, Argo Workflow, and that would be I would be able to use that not just with the Argo CD webhooks, but like pair it with other stuff like as a semi GitHub action. That could be also a thing. Yeah.
Is there any more?
Sounds good. Awesome. Thanks for your time. And yeah, hopefully you have a good rest of the not too long conference. I think there was 2-3 talks. Yeah.